Hi everyone, my name's Lorenza and what I'm going to show you in this video is how to make the cuff and the sleeve facing smaller on the Diane von Furstenberg dress. So this one is the sleeve facing and this is the cuff. Now the reason you would need to make these smaller is if you're making the sleeve narrower and shorter, which is what I did. The sleeve is quite wide on this and it's quite long. So what you're going to need in order to do this is obviously your original pattern. You'll need measuring tape, some paper scissors, and some pattern making paper. Doesn't matter what kind of paper you use, just as long as you can see through it. So if you were going to push this paper on top of the old pattern, you can see the lines through it. And some rulers and a lead pencil. I think that's everything you'd need. So what I'm going to show you first is on the original pattern. I'll show you how the sleeve facing, how that fits beautifully into the sleeve there. And same with the cuff, it has this lovely curve on it, but see how it all fits nicely. Now I have drawn in the stitch lines, which is 1.5 centimeters on all these pattern pieces, because this is where you would be stitching along, where you're joining the pattern pieces. So if I were to, I'll just hold this, the cuff here, and I'd put a pencil there, and you can see that that fits beautifully with the 1.5 seam allowance of the sleeve. Hold the pencil there and then adjust the cuff up there. And again, it fits beautifully at that point there. So what I'll do now is show you the new sleeve pattern I made, where I made it considerably narrower and shorter. So you can see here the lead pencil lines, that's the old sleeve, and then the new sleeve, the cut line is the black one and the red one is the stitch line. If I were to just get the old cuff and try and attach it, and I'll do that same point I did with the pencil where I'm joining up this, the stitch lines and the seam allowance. So let's put that there. We'll swivel the cuff around to there and then see how this is where it should be joining here. We've got all this excess cuff. So that's not going to fit on the new pattern, on the new sleeve pattern once we have made the sleeve narrower and shorter. So I'm going to show you how to adjust these. Now with the sleeve facing, this is relatively easy. We just do a simple cut and slash. Again, you can see it's too big though. So we're just taking some of the fullness out of the middle there. That's pretty easy. But because this cuff has a beautiful curve to it, we want to evenly distribute what we're taking out. If you're only taking out 1 centimeter, look, sure, you probably could take a little bit out like that and just make it match up again. But because I'm taking out a significant amount, you can see how much I've taken in the sleeves there. I'm going to show you how to take out the fullness of the cuff, distributing it evenly. Now, I love when I can say, here's one I prepared earlier, but here, what we need to do first is trace off the pattern pieces. And so, yes, here is what I've traced it off already, so it's all done for you. So here is the original cuff pattern and I've traced it off onto the tracing paper because we never want to cut into our original patterns. You always leave them. So I've traced it off into tracing paper and the sleeve facing I've traced off here as well. So I've got that one ready to go. I'll pop that to the side. So this is the cuff, and what I'm wanting to do is measure. So from the stitch line, and I will just put my green board under this because I think it's a little bit easier to view on camera. There we go. So what I'm going to do is measure from the stitch line on the end of the sleeves. This is a sleeve where it would be here on the wrist. So from here to here, I'm going to measure that. And then we know that we need to get the measurement from there to there to be the exact same because we want this to match up there. So we just need to take that fullness out. So if I'm going to measure, I'll measure along here. So from the stitch line to the other stitch line of the sleeve, and it's 22.5. And now if we're to measure it on the original cuff, because this is the same point where it's going to be stitched together. So remember to always leave off your seam allowance when you're measuring. You see how I've drawn in all these seam allowances here? It's 1.5, it's huge. If you try and leave all them on when you do pattern making, it gets very complicated. So always draw in your seam allowances, and because you're drawing then in all your stitch lines, so you're really 100% sure what's joining up with what. If you leave on all the seam allowances, you'll just get things wrong. So draw them all in like I've done here, and now I'm measuring. So that one I wrote down, it was 22.7, and then we're measuring here, and this is 27 to that stitch line. So this one's 27, and this one is 22.7. So what I need to do is get that line measuring there to being 22.7. So if we take that away, it's 4.3. So what I need to do is just basically divide this cuff by 3 and do some cut and slashes in it, and then take out that excess until it comes down to 22.7. So it will match from here to here. So really easy to divide it into 3 is we just measure. So we already measured that bottom one, didn't we? So that was 27, so that's easy, that's 9. So I can just mark along there at 9. And we'll go 9 again. And then we need to measure along the top. And you could just kind of eyeball it, but I'm really particular. So we'll measure along the top, and then we've got a point to match the dividing it by 3. So let's just measure along here. And that is 34. So we just need to divide 34 by 3. So 34 by 3 is 11.3. So I'll just draw that in there. And I'm doing centimeters. If you're not metric, I'm sure you can convert for imperial, but you'd still get the idea. It's not about the particular measurements I'm doing, it's just how I'm doing it. So 11.3. Then what we can do here is just draw these lines in. So we've divided the cuff by 3. And we've divided the cuff by 3. So now we're just going to cut into the cuff pieces here. Actually, what I should do first is, because we needed to take it in by 4.3. So 2.15 on each side. So what I'm going to do, so that makes it a bit easier, is I'm going to use this ruler. That's what I was going to say. This grading ruler is amazing for drawing in seam allowances. So it comes in 5mm increments. So you can see here, I just needed to line it up to draw in all those seam allowances. Really quick way for seam allowances. So before I cut it though, what did I say? 4.3. So we'll divide that so it's 2.15 on either side. So I'll just do 2 and a bit. So let's go. There's 2 centimeters on that side and 2 centimeters on this side. So then I've got a line to match it back up when I'm taking out that 2 centimeters. So I'm just going to cut there and then sticky tape it. So you're just lining it up as best you can. You can smooth it out a bit. So see there, I'm just overlapping the 2 centimeters, a little bit more than 2. And then I'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Now, like I said, you could just cut this through the middle, but I wanted it to be really even. And so then we'll do the 2 centimeters on this side. So now we'll just hold it up to there's the newer, smaller cuff. Now we'll just hold it up to the sleeve pattern, and I'll do that thing like I did before with the pencil and get those stitch lines and see if this matches up perfectly. So there's our sleeve, and when we're sewing it, it would be this point matching up here with this point here on the sleeve. So we'll just rotate that around. So get that to line up in the middle there, rotate it around there, and see there, oh, we're about 2mm off, but it's pretty close. So see how this point here is matching up? We'll pop it back in the middle. There we go, and that's matching up perfectly there. So I'm hoping you can see, I might zoom in a bit. See how this stitch line will match up perfectly. And then I'll bring it over and just pivot the cuff. And you can see there, here's where we're needing to match up there. So that's how to make the cuff smaller. Pretty easy, really. So we're measuring the line of the sleeve because that's the new stitch line and how small it is. And then we're just taking that line down on the old cuff, because remember it was this big, and we're just needing to take out that fullness because we don't need so much cuff anymore. And we've just distributed it evenly by doing it in 2 places like that. So really quite simple. So that's a new cuff that fits the sleeve perfectly. Sleeve facing, way easier. We don't have to do anything fancy because this is just a flat rectangle. So this is, just easier. We can just cut it. We can cut and slash anywhere along here, really. So see here, that point, I'll zoom in again. See how this point here, this matches up. If we bring it over here, we're needing it to match up here at this point. And you can see it's currently all the way over here. Oops, I'm off camera. So see, that's a huge difference, isn't it? So what we could do is just draw a line there. Let's measure it. I mean, it would be the same amount we're taking out as the cuff, but let's just measure it just for the simplicity. And I could just fold this. I can cut it and sticky tape it or fold it and sticky tape it. It doesn't really matter. Instead of measuring it, actually, what I can also do, this is going to make it really simple. See, we'll just fold this until it lines up there. Oh, I'm sorry, I did draw it on the wrong one. I drew it on the outside of the seam allowance. We're wanting it to be on this, not this one. This is my stitch line, that's the cut line. So we're wanting it there. So what I might do is while I'm holding this in place over here, I'll just move that along. So we want that to match up there, so then it matches the sleeve. And then I can just fold this. This is a very quick way of doing it. I would have measured it and cut it, but this also absolutely works as well. So I'll just fold it so it's nice and straight. Then you've got a good line to fold it on. So match those 2 points up. And then you can quite literally just fold the pattern piece and put some sticky tape on it. So you could have cut it and sticky taped it, or just do this. So see now, these parts here are matching. This part here is matching up. That's where we'd be joining it. And then we'll go across there. And you see how here this is matching up as well. So that is the sleeve facing made smaller. So if I place all these pieces on top now, so there's your newest sleeve, that's your newest sleeve facing there, and your new cuff. And all of those pieces are matching up beautifully on those points. Now the other thing you need to do when you're tracing over these pattern pieces, now this is pretty messy because I've obviously sticky taped it, you should probably now transfer this onto a nice fresh pattern piece. By all means you can use this, but if you want to do pattern making well and have a nice pattern, I'd cut this out again and trace it off, so then you have a nice pattern piece. You don't have this sticky taped cut up piece. Things to always transfer, absolutely always transfer that straight grain. See how the straight grain runs in a different direction to the sleeve facing, so you might miss that or mess it up. So always draw in your straight grain, also write what it is, copy all the instructions from the pattern. So I'd still write Vogue 2000 cuff, fabric cut 4, interfacing cut 2. The other thing you would need to do, I would just do new notches on all of it, because obviously the notches from the old pattern, they're there, but I just do new notches on all of your patterns. So that's really simple because I just line them all up there. And then you can just choose where you're going to notch, put a little red mark or use a notcher and cut it. So redo your notches, write on your pattern pieces what all the pattern pieces are, how many to cut, and absolutely put in those straight grains. And then you have all of your new pattern pieces. So the cuff, the sleeve facing, and your new sleeve. So don't be scared of making the sleeve a bit narrower and a bit shorter. It is very long and it is very wide. And it is relatively easy to update those other pattern pieces. So I hope this really helps if you're making the DVF dress, and if you want to make those sleeves a bit smaller. Thanks, bye.